In this video, I wanted to talk about dual Mexican citizenship and crossing Mexican borders. I've received this question multiple times. People have asked, can you lose your Mexican citizenship as a dual citizen based on sort of the way you cross the border? And we're going to break that down in this episode. Maybe you're living full-time in the US, maybe you're a US Mexican dual citizen, and you regularly visit family in Mexico. Or maybe they're sort of long-lost family and you're about to visit for the first time in years and you're a little bit less familiar with the process and how to do this while holding dual Mexican citizenship. This is a common concern because a Mexican passport is a powerful connection to your heritage. It's a no-brainer thing to have if you are able to obtain it. But navigating borders with dual citizenship, specifically the Mexican and US borders, comes with rules, but also myths and a big question: can you lose your Mexican citizenship? Today, everything you need to know about dual Mexican citizenship, crossing the borders, and whether you can lose it. So first, let's cover the basics of dual Mexican citizenship. Since 1998, Mexico has allowed dual citizenship, meaning you can hold Mexican nationality alongside another, like US citizenship, without being forced to choose. This was a game changer at the time, driven by the millions of Mexicans living abroad, especially in the US, who wanted to maintain ties to their homeland. And I think also the Mexican government wanted to keep that remittance money flowing. If you were born in Mexico, born abroad to at least one Mexican parent, or naturalized in Mexico, you are eligible for a Mexican passport. For US-born kids of Mexican parents, you can claim citizenship by descent. More on that later. The benefits are huge. You can live, work, and study in Mexico without visa hassles, own property in restricted zones like near the coast. You can vote, you can access public services like healthcare in Mexico, and education at citizen rates. Plus, a Mexican passport gives visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to over 150 countries, including a couple holes in your passport that the U.S. citizenship, for example, might not have, like visa-free or visa-on-arrival, Iran or Russia or some of these countries that aren't exactly aligned with the U.S. But these perks come with responsibilities, especially when crossing borders. So again, and we'll get to some of the specifics, but I want to make it 100% clear. How do you get dual Mexican citizenship? So there are three main paths. If you are born in Mexico, you automatically have Mexican citizenship, regardless of your parents' nationality. This is called jus soli, or right of soil. If you're born abroad to at least one Mexican parent, you qualify by descent, or jus sanguinis. Okay, you'll need to register your birth at a Mexican consulate with your US birth certificate, your parents' Mexican birth certificate, IDs, and so forth. And the reason I mention these paths, of which the third path is naturalization, the reason I mention these paths is sometimes when you cross the border, they say, how did you get your US citizenship? How did you get your Mexican residency in Mexico for 2 to 5 years? 2 if married to a Mexican or from a Latin American country, or you have a baby in Mexico, or 5 otherwise. And then you need to pass a Spanish language test and a Mexican history test. You need 8 out of 10 correct on the history test and 5 out of 6 on the language test. There's an application fee, etc., and then you apply for citizenship. So now, with that out of the way, the 3 different ways you can get Mexican citizenship, because you might get asked, is let's talk about crossing Mexican borders as a dual citizen. If you're a dual US Mexican citizen, you have flexibility in a sense, but you also need to follow strict rules. When entering Mexico, use your Mexican passport or INE ID to declare yourself as a Mexican national. This skips the tourist fees like the $40-something FMM for stays over 7 days and lets you bypass international immigration lines, right? You get to use the Nacionales line. When returning to the US, use your US passport. US law requires this for entry, meaning when you enter the US, you have to declare yourself as an American. entering the US as a Mexican, or even entering Mexico as an American when you have the citizenship, is quite problematic. We recommend always carrying both passports when traveling, as you'll need to show your Mexican passport when entering and exiting Mexico, and you'll need to show your US passport when entering or exiting the US. For land crossings like San Diego to Tijuana, the process is the same. You have your Mexican ID or passport going in, US passport coming back. If you're driving, also ensure your vehicle has a temporary import permit or tip to avoid fines. And that's if it's like a US plated vehicle. And we have other videos on our channel breaking down the temporary import permit in more detail. Never use your US passport to enter Mexico as a dual citizen. It can flag you as a tourist, complicating your status, especially if you're a naturalized citizen, because that's a little bit more likely to get revoked in a worst case scenario. Quick tip, keep photocopies of both passports in case one is lost, and log your crossings in a notebook for reference. So now to the big question. Can you lose your Mexican citizenship? This is where a lot of the myths creep in, so let's do our best to clear it up here. If you are a Mexican citizen by birth, so you were born in Mexico or born to Mexican parents, you cannot lose your Mexican citizenship no matter how long you've lived abroad or what other nationalities you hold. The 1917 Mexican Constitution once stripped citizenship from those who naturalized elsewhere, but the 1998 reform changed that. So if you then go and naturalize, if you become a US citizen before March 20th, 1998, you may have lost Mexican citizenship under the old law. It's rare, but it happens. But you can recover it. And we can help with the recoveries as well. By the way, probably worth mentioning at this point in time that MyLatinLife, we're a full-scale immigration and citizenship consultancy. We help people get Mexican residency and citizenship. We help people get Mexican citizenship by descent for Americans with Mexican descent. If you have Mexican parents or even Mexican grandparents, and sometimes even Mexican great-grandparents, we've had a few cases, you can get Mexican citizenship, and we can handle that whole process for you. We have a team of lawyers and everything. So if you would like help, there's a link in the description where you can book a call with us. You can be speaking with us as early as this week. We can answer all your burning questions and put that Mexican passport in your hands. So if you're serious about getting Mexican citizenship, becoming a dual citizen, I think it's a no-brainer thing to do for anybody that is entitled to it. Link in the description, book a call with us to get the process started so that you can get Mexican citizenship. So moving on with the video, for example, someone who lost citizenship in, say, 1983 regained it this way in San Diego by basically reinitiating their Mexican citizenship. If you were born in Mexico or you have Mexican parents, it's a very clear-cut case. If you're a naturalized Mexican citizen, it's a little bit different. You can lose citizenship if you live outside of Mexico for 5 years or more. You can also lose Mexican citizenship if you use a foreign passport to claim consular protection in Mexico. You can also lose Mexican citizenship if you commit acts against Mexico, like serving in a foreign army. The Mexican government cannot leave you stateless, so dual citizens face this risk more than single nationals. So for example, if you renounce your US citizenship when you become Mexican, you have less risk of it getting revoked. You have no risk really, because they're not going to allow you to be stateless. Okay. But if you are a dual citizen and you trip any of the triggers that we talked about, there is a chance that you could lose your citizenship. So pro tip, if you are naturalized, maintain ties to Mexico, like regular visits, to avoid scrutiny. Now you may be wondering, what about border-specific issues? Crossing the US-Mexico border is routine for dual citizens, but mistakes can cause headaches. If you enter Mexico as a tourist on your US passport, you'll get an FMM, which limits your stay to 180 days and doesn't reflect your citizen rights. If you overstay, you may face a fine. So that's kind of why, it's one of the reasons why it's complicated. So always enter as a Mexican national to avoid this. At land borders, Mexican officials may ask for your INE or passport to verify citizenship, so have them ready. U.S. Customs and Border Protection may question frequent crossings, so be prepared to explain your dual status like visiting family or property. If you're carrying over $10,000 in cash, declare it to both countries to avoid seizures. And seriously, this one is no joke. You can actually have that money get seized even for bringing just $11,000. For boaters entering Mexican ports like Ensenada, you'll need a tip, a TIP, for your vessel and a crew list, plus your Mexican passport to clear in as a citizen. Quick tip, you can check this website called Noonsite, Noonsite, for port-specific rules, and carry your citizenship documents in a waterproof binder. And we have another video on our channel specifically about entering foreign countries by port and boating and the tips for boats and stuff like that. So lots of very specific videos about these situations on our channel. So please subscribe to the channel. Next, let's tackle some common pitfalls. First, not registering your citizenship properly. If you're claiming citizenship by descent, ensure your parents' Mexican documents are valid with QR codes on the birth certificates. Very old birth certificates can create problems. Missing an apostille on your US birth certificate is also a common rejection reason. Second pitfall here, assuming dual citizenship means no taxes. So Mexico doesn't tax foreign income for non-residents, but if you live in Mexico for over 183 days per year, you are taxed on your worldwide income. U.S. citizens must file IRS taxes regardless of residence, so consult a tax pro. Third pitfall here is ignoring local laws. In Mexico, dual citizens are treated as Mexicans, so you can't seek U.S. consular help for local legal issues like arrests. Fourth, losing documents. Replacing a Mexican passport does have a cost associated with it, and delays can strand you. So also make sure you have your INE as well. If you need to enter Mexico but don't have your Mexican passport, be sure to show that INE. And the INE, of course, is the acronym INE, and it's like the voter registration card in Mexico. And by the way, keep digital backups of everything. Have a scan of your INE, have a scan of your passport on the cloud. And pro tip, contact the SRE, the Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, at a consulate for any citizenship issues. They are the authority. So you may be wondering, what if you want to renounce your Mexican citizenship or your US citizenship? Regarding Mexican citizenship, renunciation is rare but possible if you hold another nationality, as Mexico doesn't allow statelessness. To renounce, you'd apply through the SRE, proving your other citizenship, and pay a fee. This might happen if your other country, like say Japan, doesn't allow dual citizenship. I have seen posts on Twitter that mention that you can only renounce Mexican citizenship if you have another nationality, reinforcing this rule. But be aware, renouncing means losing all your rights in Mexico, like property ownership in the restricted zones. So if you renounce but you have property on the coast, that's going to create another issue. Quick tip, consult an immigration lawyer before renouncing to understand the impact. And again, we can help with that at MyLatinLife. Now, I know some people might actually want to renounce their U.S. citizenship because that's the one with citizenship-based taxation. Mexico, I really don't see much reason to renounce because there's no tax on worldwide income. There's no citizenship-based taxation. But the U.S., there's actually really an angle here where you could get to a zero-tax lifestyle by renouncing your U.S. citizenship and simply having your Mexican citizenship. And then as a Mexican citizen, you could get residency in, say, a territorial tax country like Panama, Costa Rica, Honduras, Paraguay, one of these countries and live a zero tax life and still be making US dollars. You could have a US LLC, be a Mexican citizen, be a Paraguay tax resident, and with proper structuring, you could actually get to a zero tax lifestyle while earning USD and spending pesos. And if you're curious about how that might look, again, book a call with us, link in the description. So coming back to things for those crossing frequently, like in twin cities like Tijuana, San Diego, dual citizenship is a superpower. You can work in Mexico without permits. You can work in the US without permits. You get to skip the tourist lines and go straight into the citizen lines. You can own property in both countries, including coastal property. But stay organized. Keep a log of your crossings, including dates and documents used to avoid confusion with officials. If you're a retiree, dual citizenship lets you access Mexico's healthcare system like IMSS, which is huge because obviously there's no free healthcare in the US really, but there is free healthcare in Mexico, and of course much less expensive private healthcare as well. For students, it means cheaper tuition at Mexican universities. The Soy Mexico campaign in Baja California shows how popular this is. 23,000 kids and young adults applied in Tijuana alone to go to school over the border in Mexico because it's just so much less expensive than going to school in California or in the United States. And that's the complete guide to dual Mexican citizenship and crossing Mexican borders. From claiming your citizenship to navigating borders, these steps will keep you legal and confident. My top takeaway: always use your Mexican passport entering Mexico, your US passport entering the US, and stay on top of your documents. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment with your dual citizenship stories or border crossing tips. And if you have questions about Mexican citizenship, again, link in the description to book a call with us, and we'll see you in the next video.